Haaretz published the current version of the EU statement, which is not bad. It calls for a Palestinian state in the whole of the West Bank and Gaza, with East Jerusalem as the capital. It does explicitly say, I hope they keep that East Jerusalem as the capital in the final version. There's going to be huge pressure on the EU to remove it. I don't think they can, because that's been their consistent position every year in the UN. And again, Goldstone was quite good. In the report, it refers to East Jerusalem as part of Palestinian occupied territory. So that was another strong aspect of the Goldstone report. But the focus is again going to be on the so-called peace process, and it's going to move away from the Goldstone, and I think that's a disaster. It's not a disaster, it's just more of the same. Because what's going to happen? The Palestinians will declare a state, then the Israelis will declare that we're annexing the settlement blocks, and then the US will come in and say, well, obviously, we need to negotiate. And we'll be right back where we started from. You know? It's the whole problem with the way the whole process is conceived. That you can resolve this issue by declarations and political and diplomatic maneuvering, rather than trying to mobilize people to affect change. And that was, again, one of the things I admired about Gandhi. When people would ask him, what do you think the British are going to do? What do you think the British are going to do? Gandhi used to answer, I don't care what the British are thinking. It's just totally irrelevant. It's not what they're thinking that's important. It's what we do that's important. If we get our act right, if we do the right thing, then they'll have to do what we want them to do. But you don't do politics by investing yourself in saviors. Even if it were true, for argument's sake, even if it were true that the EU and the US were tomorrow to give the Palestinians the state, what kind of state would it be? It would be a state run by a gang of thugs and hoodlums and torturers and murderers. Is that what you want? Is that what you struggled all these decades for? And that was another thing that was good about Gandhi. He said, I don't want to replace the British with a bunch of Indian crooks. That's not what it's about. He said independence, he used to call it not Swaraj, which means independence, but Hind Swaraj, which means like full independence. He says, for me, full independence means empowering the ordinary people. If it's just going to be a bunch of Indians replacing the British, who needs it? And that's what would happen if you have a granting of it from above. So number one, I don't think it's going to happen that way. Number two, even if it were to happen that way, I don't think it's particularly desirable. So it'll be Mr. Dahlen who's in charge, rather than Mr. Netanyahu. Oh, either way, it's Netanyahu when the U.S. is in charge. But no, I don't really think that's what politics is about. And for those who think it's what it's about, I can only respectfully disagree. Many people invested a lot in Mr. Obama. I remember being here not so many months ago, where hopes were riding high in Obama. I listened to his speech last night. It was the first time I had ever heard him speak. I don't watch television. I can't listen to that stuff. But I turned it on for a few minutes. And I just kept asking myself, okay, how would Bush have put it differently? I'm an atheist of the old school. but as a resolute atheist, I believe that God helps those who help themselves. We have to get our act together, or else we'll get nothing in this world. In other words, the famous civil rights leader, Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a very religious person, and there was a famous scene of her in a church, and she said to the people sitting in the pew, she said, "You can pray to God all you want, but unless you get up and do something, you're not going to get anything." And that's right. I don't want to sit around and wait for what the EU is going to give. The EU, Berlusconi, Sarkozy, that lunatic Merkel. Why would you want anything